Hi and welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. Today we're going to give you issues and solutions concerning the CC plant or the Samioculca samifolia. Now this is one of the easiest plants to take care of in your home. However, you can have problems sometimes. And if you have a problem, this is the video where we tell you exactly what to do to help take care of your plant. But if you want to know how to take care of this plant, we have all you need to know about the CC plant video. We put a link up there. If you want to propagate the Samioculcas, we also have a video on that. Now, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. And hit the bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. Of course, please like us on Instagram and Facebook where you get sneak previews on upcoming videos. And sometimes a little bit more than that. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps this channel a lot. Now, like I said, it's very uncommon to have a problem with your CC plant. They're really easy to care for. But we have 8 different issues that could arrive. And if they do, you can just watch this video over and over again to see how to take care of it. So starting off with number 1. And this is really number 1, because 99 times out of 100, if you have a problem with your CC plant, it's usually that you have bright yellow leaves. Some of the leaves are turning bright yellow, or maybe all of them on one stem, or just overall in the pot. Bright yellow. Now what is that and what can we do? Now if I said that you get yellow leaves 99 times out of 100, then those yellow leaves are 99 times out of 100 because you have given your plant too much water. It's overwatering your CC plant. And it reacts directly by giving you yellow leaves. Now, it could be that you have given too much water at one point, which means that in your pot you could have water standing in the bottom. And it reacts by really quickly getting root rot or just pushing out those yellow leaves. But it could also be that when you water, you actually water with the correct amount of water, but your soil gets to be too wet. It doesn't have good drainage, which means that the roots are actually wet for a too long period of time. Now, if you want to know how to get good drainage, we have a video. We'll put a link up there as well. You can go and watch that afterwards. But if the roots are wet for a long period of time, you will get yellow leaves as well. Now, the last reason for getting those bright yellow leaves are actually because if it gets too hot. Now, this is not a problem in Sweden, I assure you. We never get that here. But if you live in a country where you have really hot summers, this could also be an indication that you have too hot in your house. And usually there's not much to do. If you're in a warm climate, you can't change that. Of course, you can have something that lowers that heat indoors. But otherwise, my recommendation to you is that just place your plant somewhere where it gets a lot of air, where the air is moving a little bit, because that could help to cool your plant and could help you with those issues. Now, before we leave the first issue, which is bright yellow leaves, I just want to say this. Make sure that your CC plant never ever gets too much water and that you have good drainage. If you do that, you will probably never have a problem with your CC plant. So if you have issues, always check your watering first. Issue number 2. Now, this is also concerning yellow leaves, but the leaves are not bright yellow. really, really yellow. They're just starting to get a little bit shaded in color, a little bit of a hint of yellow to the leaves. Now this can be something completely different. It could be the water as well, so check that first. But if you know that you let it dry out completely in between waterings, then it could be something else. Now the first thing is that the CC plant doesn't like sunlight, at least not when you have it indoors. So if it gets to be a little bit shaded or a little bit light yellow in color, it could be that it's getting too much direct sunlight. So just move it to somewhere else where it gets a lot of light, but not direct sunlight. And this could make the issue go away. Another thing is that the CC plant doesn't need much fertilizer. You don't have to give it as much as you give all of your other plants indoors, your tropical plants. And if you give it too much fertilizer, one of the things that could happen is that it will start to look a little bit shaded, and it gets these small hints of yellow leaves on them. So it could be too much fertilizer. If it is that, then check the soil, because usually you can see that in the soil you have excess salts. You have small white fuzzy things in your soil. That is excess salts. And if you have that, then repot your plant, take all of that excess salt out of the pot, and then the problem should go away. And make sure that when you fertilize again, you only do it once or twice a year, and that you dilute your fertilizer a lot so that it's not too concentrated. And when you repot it with new soil so that you're sure that all of that excess salts are going away. Now the difficulty here is that those shaded yellow leaves could also mean the opposite. You could have a nutrient deficiency. So it shows almost in the same way. If you have too much fertilizer or too much salts in your soil, they start to get a little bit shaded yellow. But if you have a nutrient deficiency, they also start to get a little bit shaded in color, a little bit a hint of yellow. So if you know that you haven't given your CC plant any fertilizer for maybe 1, 2, or 3 years, then that is probably the case, that you have a nutrient deficiency. But if you have given fertilizer, then it's probably the opposite, that you have given too much. Now the third issue could be that you get black spots on the leaves. And they arrive on the tips of the leaves or directly on the leaves. It could be on the edges of the leaf. Usually it starts with a little bit of a yellow hint, and then it just turns black. And you see big black dots with a yellow line around it. Now this is a problem with either fungus or bacteria. You have a problem down by the roots. They have gone into the plants, and you get those burnt black spots on the leaves. Not on the stems usually, but on the leaves. If you get this, the easiest way to get rid of that is that you cut off all of the infected leaves. If a stem has a lot of infected leaves on it, cut away all of that stem. And I also recommend you to repot your CC plant, because when you repot and add new soil to that, you could get rid of a lot of those bacteria and fungus that you have down by the roots. And you will probably be fine. You can get rid of those just as easily as that. Now the fourth issue is actually not an issue, but I know that a lot of people are afraid of this and they don't understand what it is. And that is when you get black spots on the stems. Now I have one here that has quite clear black spots on the stems. You can see it right here on this plant here. Now those black spots that appear on the stem, some stems have it, some stems don't. This is a fully natural way for the CC plant to look. as long as you feel those black spots and they just feel like the stem. They're not mushy, they're not bulging in or out. It's just a part of the stem, and this is fully natural. You have nothing to worry about. Some stems will have it, some stems won't. It just makes the CC plant what it is. Now, if those spots start to get a little bit mushy or they bulge out or in, then we have the same problem as we had in number 3. It's probably a fungus or a bacterial problem. And if you see that, cut away that stem completely, repot it, just follow the steps in number 3. Number 5, if you get brown tips on your leaves, or it could be brown edges on the leaves without becoming spots. They're just brown edges or brown tips. This could be an indication that you have too much chlorine or fluoride in your tap water, the water that you are giving to your plant. And it usually shows like that. And when you get those tips or edges of the leaves starts to become brown, if it continues, they actually start to shrivel and become really, really dry as well. So you can just, when you touch them, they just fall apart. That is an indication that you have too much chlorine or fluoride in your tap water. Now, one way to deal with that is that you could just put out your tap water for maybe 48 hours. Just let it aerate a little bit, and usually a lot of those chemicals will go away. But I know that in some countries that doesn't work. But you could try it and see if it works for you. Otherwise, use bottled water or rainwater instead when you water, and that problem will probably go away. Another reason could also mean that you have an extremely high humidity. If the humidity in your country or in your house is very, very high, this could show in the same way that tips of the leaves and edges of the leaves could start to become brown. And what I recommend you to do is try and put your plant somewhere where you aerate it as much as you can, to try and get that humidity down. If it's standing somewhere, you could start opening windows and get a little bit of a draft to take down that humidity a bit. Now, the last reason for those brown tips could also mean that your plant has been standing in the pot for a very, very long time. Now, the CC plant likes that. It likes to be root bound, it likes to bulge out of the pot, but when that soil gets to be really, really old, it has decomposed so much that it actually doesn't work anymore. It can't hold water. And when it doesn't hold water anymore, it just goes straight through and out of the holes in the bottom. And the plant isn't getting any water. And one thing you could see is that you start to get those brown tips or brown edges, or the entire leaf could start to become brown and just dry. That probably means that even if you're giving water to your plant, the plant cannot absorb it. It cannot get to it. It just goes straight out of the pot. So if you know that you haven't repotted it in a lot of years, then try and repot it again, and those problems will go away with new soil, of course. Problem number 6. And the problem is that you can see on the entire plant that the leaves, which should look like this, they should have this very glossy, nice shine to them, and they should be quite thick. When you feel them, it almost feels like it's a succulent. But if that glossy starts to go away, and you can feel that the leaves are starting to become thinner, you can almost see that it looks like it's just starting to dry out. Well, then that is probably what you have. You haven't given your plant enough water. Now, this is extremely rare concerning the CC plant, but it could happen. And another reason for this could be that you haven't given it enough water and that you have extremely low humidity in your house. Now this can be a problem here in Sweden because in the wintertime we get really, really low humidity indoors. And what happens then is that if you don't give your CC plant enough water, by that I do not mean to give it a lot of water, but if you haven't given it the amount it wants and you have extremely low humidity, a lot of the water inside of the plant just evaporates straight out of the leaves. And if it hasn't got water to move up the stems and out to the leaves, what happens is that it starts to take all of that water that is stored in the leaf, in the stems and in the tubers here, down here, and it just looks like everything is just starting to become thinner. It looks weary, it looks tired. So if this happens, just start to water it a little bit more, and if you can, try and raise the humidity in your house. Problem number 7, and this could be quite a common problem. Now, I've said this many times, I'll say it again. You should never overwater your CC plant. But if you're not giving it enough water, what could happen is that the thicker parts of the stems down here, these are the parts that actually just comes out of the tuber down here. If those thicker parts here start to shrivel, they just start to get cavities along that thick stem like this, all around it. It almost looks like it's getting drained. And that is exactly what's happening. It's getting drained of nutrients, it's getting drained of water. If that happens, if you see that on those thick parts of the stem here, then you haven't given it enough water. It could also mean that you're placing it somewhere where it gets too hot or gets too much direct sunlight. And all of the water is just evaporating straight out of the leaves. And it cannot hold that water in. Eventually, it starts to tap into those storage units down here. Because in the tubers and in those thick stems, we have a lot of water and a lot of nutrients. And if it has to start to use that, it looks shriveled down here. So if you see that, then make sure that you place your CC plant somewhere where it's not as hot, doesn't get as much light, and start to give it a little bit more water, because it needs more water. Now lastly, number 8. And this is also a problem that I've had a couple of times, because we usually say that the CC plant is a plant that, in Sweden we call it garderobsblomma, or closet flower, which basically means that you could place it in a closet where it doesn't get any light and it will actually survive. And it is that strong. However, if you don't give it enough light, what could happen, and what you can see on your plant, is that the newest leaves actually doesn't turn dark green. This is a very new shoot coming up, and usually they look like this. They have this very faded green, almost yellowish tone to them. But when that moves up and starts to put out those leaves, it should start to get dark green like this. If that doesn't happen, if the leaves have come out and you see that they're still this light green color, then you probably haven't given your CC plant enough light. If you know that it's standing somewhere deep into a room, it doesn't get a lot of light, then this is the indication for you to move it somewhere where it gets more light. As soon as you do that, photosynthesis is going to start to kickstart again, and those leaves will start to become dark green like this. Because that is the problem. It cannot photosynthesize properly, and that's why you don't get that green, nice color. Now that is all the issues that we have had with our CC plants over the years, and we have over 20 years experience of taking care of these plants. We've taken care of thousands and thousands of them. And I hope this will help you take care of your CC plant. If you have an issue, then we have the solution here. Just follow the steps or one of these 8 steps here. I hope you've liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps our channel a lot. And of course, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell so you get a notification every time we put up something new. And also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we get sneak previews on upcoming videos and sometimes that little extra. So until next time, hej då!